So I've talked about the need to overcome this death consciousness, the consciousness of separation, the duality consciousness. And how do we do it? Well, ultimately, of course, we do it by reaching for the Christ mind, contacting the Christ mind, because the Christ mind becomes a frame of reference that first of all allows us to see there is something outside what I was brought up with, the worldview that I was brought up with. For example, the worldview presented by the official Christian churches. There's something outside of that. And then you can actually, it's not a matter of intellectualizing, right? As I said, not a matter of intellectualizing for or against Christ. It's a matter of directly in your heart experiencing there is something outside, and that something seems more real to me than what I was told by the churches. That's the beginning of the process for you of freeing yourself from this death consciousness. But Jesus, of course, gave various hints. And in this one, I'm just going to talk about one of these hints. This is from Mark, chapter 10. And they brought young children to him, that he should touch them, and his disciples rebuked those that brought them. But when Jesus saw it, he was much displeased, and said unto them, Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God. Verily I say unto you, whosoever shall not receive the kingdom of God as a little child, he shall not enter therein. And he took them up in his arms, put his hands upon them, and blessed them. And of course, you have to be a little bit discerning here. Because you can obviously look at children and you can say, well, they can be very, very selfish, they can be very emotional, they can be very focused on themselves, their own little interest, and get very moody. And this, of course, is not what Jesus meant when he said, unless ye become as little children. So what did he mean? Well, what he meant was that little children are open-minded, generally speaking. Generally speaking. So in other words, you look at Jesus, right? You look at the scriptures. What happened all the time? He met people who resisted him, who argued against him, who wanted to prove him wrong. Often the scribes and Pharisees, but also others. So constantly you see Jesus, he is walking through his mission there in these 3 years, and he's constantly being opposed by these people. And why are they opposing him? Because they think they know better. They think they already know everything they need to know in order to be saved. This is what I said in previous talks. In the duality consciousness, people have created a view, a world view of everything, including how to be saved. And they think they have the highest view of this, the highest truth. But it's all created in this world based on what I call the consciousness of separation, the duality consciousness, what Jesus called death. It's based on that which actually causes you to experience yourself as being outside the kingdom. And yet they think that based on what is outside the kingdom, they can find a way for you to enter the kingdom. And that's what Jesus comes to challenge and say, no, there is only one way to enter the kingdom. And that is to give up the death consciousness, to remove that beam from your own eye, to lock into the Christ mind, to give up the life that is separate and be reborn into a life as a connected being. It's the only way. Hello, there is no other way. But the people Jesus are up against, their minds are so full of their worldview and their doctrines and intellectual arguments, they can't hear what he's saying. There is no room in the inn for the Christ to be born in them. But the little children, at least some of them, are more open. And that's why he's saying, in the last talk I talked about Peter using his ability to recognize Christ in Jesus And therefore he's saying, in order to recognize Christ, there has to be some openness in your mind. That's why you have to become as a little child. In Buddhism, they have this concept of beginner's mind, where instead of having all of these ideas that you are projecting, you're just open to listening. You see, what happens to people who are like the scribes and Pharisees is some of them were coming to Jesus. In essence, you could say, I talked about the two challenges of Christ and Peter failing the second one, right? So here's Peter. He recognizes there's something special about Jesus. But then in the second quote from Matthew, where Jesus says, "Get thee behind me, Satan," Jesus is now using his preconceived worldview to project that upon Christ. So he is not coming to Jesus with the open mind of a child. He's coming to have his pre-existing worldview validated. He's coming to have the worldview based on the mind of Antichrist validated by the mind of Christ. That can never happen. It will never happen, because the Christ will never validate what is of Antichrist. It can't. And that's why, unless you receive the kingdom with the open mind of a child, you cannot enter. You will stand indefinitely outside the kingdom, arguing why you are guaranteed to enter at some future time. But you are refusing to do the one thing that can get you into the kingdom. Question your world view. Use the Christ as a frame of reference for questioning every element of Antichrist that you have allowed into the 4 levels of your mind: the physical, emotional, mental, and identity level. Most people on earth have a sense of identity based on the illusion that we're separate beings. That's the highest level of the mind. That filters down to the mental level of the mind. And now, the way we are using intellectual arguments is based on validating that worldview that we are separate beings. And at the emotional level, all of our feelings are tied into validating that view and rejecting anything that contradicts it or goes beyond it. That's why the scribes and the Pharisees got so angry when they met Jesus. That's why they engaged in these pointless intellectual arguments. And that's why Jesus so often didn't actually reason with them. He just rebuked them. Scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, ye are of your father the devil. You are like whitened sepulchres filled with dead men's bones. He wasn't trying to argue with them because he knew it was pointless. So he was just trying to challenge them, hoping that some of them would come to see that, wait a minute, Jesus has something I don't have. There is some energy, some light in Jesus that I sense in Jesus that I don't have, and I want it. And that's the whole point of Jesus' teaching. The whole point of Jesus' teaching is, said it before, he was an example for the path, the way to the Christ consciousness that all of us have the potential to follow. And what the Christian religion has systematically done from the Nicene Creed forward is to completely obliterate and deny that path. Salvation is not a gradual path to a higher state of consciousness. Salvation is an all or nothing, a one-time event that can only happen by some external force saving you. And the church can guarantee that it will happen after this lifetime. You don't have to change your consciousness. You just have to have faith. You have to have blind faith in the blind leaders of the Christian religion And one day, poof, you will be in the kingdom of heaven. If you can believe this, a friend of mine has some oceanfront property in Arizona that you might be interested in buying. I know somebody else who sells snake oil that will cure all diseases. Literally, what the Christian church has been selling since the formation of the Catholic Church is snake oil, because their entire view of salvation is based on the serpentine mind. Thou shalt not surely die. Well, thou shalt surely not be saved if thou follow the Christian religion.